forest was silent except for the sound of his breathing. The human staggered forward, his leg aching from the fall. He had been separated from his team hours ago, maybe longer. He could not tell anymore. Strange blue vines glowed faintly around him, making the shadows feel alive. Every step was heavy, every sound dangerous. He leaned against a tree, trying to catch his breath. His mind screamed to stay alert because this was alien land, and he was not welcome here. He felt a presence before he saw her. A soft rustle in the leaves, a faint breath too close, and then glowing eyes peering from behind a tree. They were large, bright, and unblinking. He froze, his muscles tensing. The figure stepped out slowly. It was a girl, not human, but alien. Her skin shimmered faintly, pale with a strange blue hue under the forest light. Her hair fell in smooth silver strands over her shoulders, and her movements were quiet like the air itself. She looked fragile, almost delicate, but her eyes carried a bold curiosity that made his chest tighten. She tilted her head at him as if studying some rare creature. He had heard about this species before. They did not take kindly to outsiders, and yet here was one, alone, staring directly at him. She said nothing at first, only stepping closer with slow, careful movements. He swallowed hard, not sure if he should run or stay still, but his injury made the choice for him. Her gaze shifted downward. Her glowing eyes widened, and a strange expression crossed her face, half wonder, half confusion. She pointed with her long, slender finger and whispered something in her language. He could not understand, but her voice was soft, almost like a question. Then, slowly, in broken English, she repeated, "Can I touch it, human?" The words made his blood run cold. He stiffened, unsure what she truly meant. Did she mistake it for a weapon? Did she think it was dangerous? Or was it just her raw, innocent curiosity? His breath caught in his throat, his mind spinning with questions. The silence around them made her words echo louder, heavier. She took one step closer, ignoring the way his body tensed. Her eyes never left the spot between his legs, glowing with fascination. He could see her hand tremble slightly as if she wanted to reach out. His heart pounded. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. Fear and confusion wrapped around him like chains. One wrong move and she could scream, bringing the others. "Stay back," he muttered, his voice rough, but she did not listen. She leaned closer, her face only inches away now. The air between them was heavy with tension. Her breath was warm, carrying a faint sweet scent he could not name. He felt the heat of her body, even though she had not touched him yet. Her hand lifted, shaking with hesitation, but also with a strange determination. She looked into his eyes, waiting, as if asking silently if she could continue. For a moment, he saw something unexpected. Fear, not of him hurting her, but of her breaking some unspoken rule of her people. It was as if she knew she was crossing a line. His lips parted, but no words came. He wanted to stop her, yet his voice failed him. His chest rose and fell quickly, and the forest around them seemed to fade into silence. She moved her hand an inch closer, and he could almost feel the warmth radiating from her skin. His body was rigid, torn between pushing her away and letting her continue. Then a sound broke the silence. A faint call in the distance, deep voices speaking in her tongue. She froze instantly, her hand snapping back, her glowing eyes widening with fear. She glanced toward the direction of the voices, then back at him. Her lips pressed tightly, and her body shook. It was clear now. She was not supposed to be here with him. If they found her near a human, the punishment could be severe. Her chest rose and fell quickly, panic flashing in her eyes. She stepped back, but not far enough to leave. She looked at him again, her voice barely a whisper this time, trembling. Human. He did not move. He listened to the voices growing louder, closer. His instincts told him this was a trap, that she might scream and reveal his location. Yet something in her face stopped him. Her fear was real. She was just as trapped as he was. The footsteps of the others rustled the leaves, breaking through the silence. She looked left and right, her silver hair brushing her cheeks as her head darted. Her eyes met his again, pleading, as if she was silently asking him for something she could not say aloud. He made a choice then. Despite his pain, despite the risk, he motioned for her to come closer, to hide with him in the shadows. For a second, she hesitated, then rushed toward him, her body pressing against his chest as they slipped behind the thick roots of a massive tree. He held his breath, every muscle locked tight, as the alien voices passed by only a few feet away. Her heartbeat thudded fast against him. She kept her hand near his chest, gripping the fabric of his torn uniform. Her glowing eyes looked up at him in the dark, wide and uncertain. She was no longer the bold, curious girl from moments before. Now she was fragile, trembling, caught between danger and desire to know more. When the voices faded into the distance, she finally let out a shaky breath. Her hand slipped down from his chest, but she stayed close, whispering softly in her broken English again, "Different. Human is different." He stared at her, his thoughts spinning. What had just happened? Why had she asked such a question? And why, deep inside, did he feel this was only the beginning of something far more dangerous than the hunters outside? The silence after the guards passed did not last long. The girl's glowing eyes were still wide, and her body trembled lightly against him. She pulled away just enough to look at him properly, her lips parting as if she wanted to speak again, but instead she stared downward, her gaze returning to the same strange place between his legs. Her face changed, confusion mixed with wonder, as if she was trying to understand something forbidden. Before he could stop her, she whispered in her soft, broken English, "Hard? Human hard, why?" He stiffened, feeling heat rush through him. Her kind of curiosity was dangerous, far more dangerous than the voices in the distance. She leaned closer again, ignoring his quiet warning. He whispered harshly, "Don't," but her hand moved anyway, trembling as if caught between fear and an irresistible pull. The tips of her fingers brushed lightly, and the touch sent a shiver through him. He jerked, not from pain, but from the shock of how her skin felt, warm, smooth, with a strange energy humming beneath it. Her breath caught in her throat, and her glowing eyes widened. She gasped as if she had just touched fire, pulling her hand back but not running. Instead, she held her palm up to her face, staring at it in disbelief. "Different," she whispered again. "So strong, so alive." The human stepped back, trying to put distance between them. His heart pounded like a drum, and he cursed himself for not moving sooner. But before either of them could speak, the sound of the guards returned, closer this time. Heavy footsteps crunched against the ground, and sharp voices barked orders in her language. They were searching more carefully now, and it was clear they were hunting for her. The alien girl's face paled. She looked toward the voices, then back at him. Fear clung to her every movement. If they caught her near him, she would be punished. If they caught him at all, he would be killed on the spot. Her lips trembled as she whispered quickly, "They find us. I die. You die too." The urgency in her voice made his pulse quicken. Without thinking, he grabbed her hand and pulled her deeper into the shadows of the forest. She stumbled behind him, her silver hair catching faint light as they rushed. He bit down on the pain in his leg, forcing himself to move faster. She looked at him with shock. No one of her people would have risked themselves for her like this. They stopped behind a cluster of thick roots twisted like walls. The human pressed her down beside him, both crouching low. The voices grew louder, closer. One of the guards shouted something, and another answered sharply. He could hear metal weapons clinking, the sound scraping across his nerves. His breath came slow and quiet, but his heart thundered. Beside him, the girl shook her head, whispering so softly he almost missed it. "Why you help? You not my kind." Her glowing eyes searched his face, desperate for an answer. He wanted to tell her it was the right thing to do, but there was no time. The guards were too near. Branches cracked under heavy boots. The girl pressed her hand against her mouth to stop herself from making a sound. Her body leaned against his again, her heartbeat racing wildly. He held her shoulder steady, feeling the tremor running through her. One wrong movement, and the hunters would find them. A beam of strange light swept across the trees. The guards were using scanners, bright devices that cut through the shadows. The light passed dangerously close to them, stopping just inches away before moving on. The girl squeezed his arm so tightly her nails dug into him, but he didn't move. He kept still, every muscle locked until the beam passed. Minutes dragged like hours. At last, the footsteps faded slowly into the distance. The voices grew faint, swallowed by the forest. Only then did the girl exhale, collapsing slightly against him. Her whole body shook as if she had been holding back a scream. She buried her face against his chest for a moment before pulling back. "You saved me," she whispered, her broken English low but filled with wonder. Her fingers still trembled as they brushed against his arm. Why? Human weak? But not weak. Different. Her voice cracked on the last word, her confusion raw and real. The human did not answer right away. His chest heaved with the effort of staying still, his mind racing. He looked at her, seeing the fear in her glowing eyes, but also the spark of something else. Curiosity mixed with trust. She had touched him once, shocked by what she felt, and now she looked at him as if he was more than just a stranger. Before he could speak, another sound cut through the forest. The guards again, angrier this time. They were circling back, their search tightening. The human's jaw clenched. They couldn't stay hidden here much longer. He glanced at the ruins deeper inside the forest, dark shapes half buried in the earth. It was dangerous to go there, but staying meant capture. He turned to her, whispering firmly, "We move." She shook her head in panic, whispering back, "No safe. Ruins cursed." But his grip on her hand tightened, leaving her no choice. She swallowed hard and nodded, her glowing eyes fixed on him with reluctant trust. As they prepared to move again, she whispered almost too softly to hear, "I touch you. I break law. If they find, they kill me slow." Her voice trembled with fear and shame. Yet beneath her fear, her gaze lingered on him, the memory of her touch still burning in her mind. He met her eyes, steady and serious. "Then they won't find us," he said simply. Together, they slipped from the cover of the roots and ran deeper into the shadows, the ruins waiting like the mouth of a beast. The danger outside was real, but what waited inside might be worse. Still, for both of them, there was no turning back now. The ruins swallowed them in silence as they entered. Broken stone walls rose around them, covered with moss and glowing insects that clung to cracks like tiny lanterns. The air was cooler here, but heavy, carrying the weight of forgotten centuries. The human moved slowly, careful with every step, his injured leg dragging slightly. The alien girl stayed close behind him, her silver hair brushing his shoulder as she followed. Her glowing eyes darted everywhere, wide with both fear and awe. When they finally stopped in the shadow of a crumbled archway, the human leaned against the cold stone, catching his breath. The girl stood in front of him, her hands clutching each other tightly, as if holding in a secret. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence pressed down on them until she broke it with a whisper. "You protect me," she said in her broken English, her voice trembling. "Why? Not same. Not your kind." He looked at her carefully. Her eyes were not filled with the hostility he had expected from her species. Instead, they were bright with something else. Curiosity, fear, and something softer he could not name. He hesitated before answering, his words low. "Because it was right." She blinked at him, as if the word right was strange to her. Slowly, she stepped closer, her fingers trembling as she raised them toward her lips. She hesitated, then whispered again. "If they find us, I die. Not only for human, for touch." Her cheeks flushed faintly, a shimmer beneath her pale blue skin. She looked down, ashamed. His chest tightened, so she understood the danger. Her people must have strict laws against touching outsiders, especially humans. She looked back up at him, her eyes glowing brighter. "I touch. I feel different, like fire, like strong." Her voice shook as she spoke the words, as if admitting something too dangerous. "They say human weak, but you, not weak." Her hand lifted slightly, almost without her realizing. She stared at his chest, then at his face, her lips parting as if she wanted to confess more. But instead she swallowed and whispered, "I want know why. Why human body hard? Why strong? Why different?" The human felt the weight of her questions pressing on him. He opened his mouth to answer, but a sudden echo rolled through the ruins. The sound of distant voices bounced against the stone, making them both freeze. She gasped and instinctively pressed against him, hiding in his shadow. He pulled her behind a pillar, his arms steady against her trembling frame. They stood so close their breaths mixed in the cold air. Her body shook, but not just from fear. He could feel her heartbeat racing wildly against him. Her glowing eyes stared up at him in the dark, her lips close enough that he could see them quiver. She whispered so softly, it was almost part of the silence. "I never so near. Never with human." The voices faded again, leaving only their uneven breaths. She didn't move away this time. Instead, she gripped the fabric of his uniform with her slender fingers, clinging as if afraid he might disappear. He realized then that she wasn't only scared of the guards. She was scared of herself, of the questions she carried, of the strange pull she felt toward him. Finally, she pulled back just enough to look at him directly. Her expression was serious, her eyes almost glowing brighter in the dark. "My people lie," she whispered. "They say human weak, but I touch, I know truth, inside you, strong, alive, different." He held her gaze, unsure what to say. She continued, her words rushing out now, almost desperate. "If they know, they kill me. They say no one touch human. But I—" She stopped, her voice cracking. She pressed a hand against her chest as if trying to calm the storm inside her. He could see it clearly now. She was caught between fear of her people and the strange bond forming in this silence. He felt the weight of her confession, knowing it tied her fate to his. Slowly, he said, "Your people are wrong. Humans, we survive. We fight. We don't give up." Her lips parted in awe, as if his words struck something deep inside her. "Survive," she whispered, repeating the word like a prayer. "Yes, I feel it. When you hold me, I feel safe. Not weak, safe." Her hand lifted again, stopping just before touching him. She shook, her body torn between law and desire, between fear and trust. The ruins groaned faintly as wind pushed through the cracks, carrying the distant echo of the hunters still searching outside. But in that shadowed corner, the world seemed to shrink to only them. She looked at him with eyes full of questions and fear, yet also something new, a spark of trust that hadn't been there before. She whispered again, her voice breaking like glass. "I should hate you, but I don't. I want more. I want no human truth." Her glowing eyes searched his face, waiting for an answer that could change everything. The human's chest rose and fell slowly. He did not push her away. He did not break her gaze. Instead, he let the silence answer for him, heavy with meaning. The girl finally drew in a sharp breath and stepped back, though her hand lingered in the air as if it still remembered the heat of his body. She looked down, ashamed but also strangely relieved. "Secret," she whispered. "Our secret. No one know." He nodded once. She pressed her trembling fingers to her lips, then to her chest, as if sealing the promise inside her heart. Outside, the hunters' voices echoed again, calling her name. She flinched, but this time her fear was not just for herself. She looked at him, her lips trembling. "If they find us," she whispered, "I say nothing. I keep you safe. I promise." The human felt the weight of her vow. What had started with one innocent question had now bound them together in a dangerous secret. He could see it in her eyes. This was no longer simple curiosity. It was the beginning of something forbidden, something that could destroy them both if discovered. And deep down, he knew there was no turning back. The ruins grew darker the deeper they went. The broken walls leaned inward like the jaws of some ancient beast, and strange symbols glowed faintly on the stone, marking a history neither of them understood. The human moved carefully, his injured leg dragging but never slowing too much, because he knew staying still meant death. The alien girl followed close, her silver hair brushing against her cheeks, her glowing eyes darting nervously. She looked terrified, but there was something else in her expression, an unshakable pull toward the human who had saved her. The sound of the hunters echoed faintly behind them, their voices sharp and cruel. The girl shivered, whispering under her breath, "They not stop. They hunt until blood." Her words made his chest tighten. He already knew their kind didn't forgive betrayal, but hearing it from her lips made the danger heavier. He glanced at her, noticing how she hugged her arms tightly against her chest, as if she could protect herself with nothing but her own fear. They reached a collapsed chamber where a faint blue light glowed from crystals growing out of the floor. The place looked both beautiful and frightening, as if it was alive. The human motioned for her to sit and rest for a moment. She obeyed, her trembling legs giving out beneath her. She sat on a piece of fallen stone, staring at him with wide eyes as he leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. Her voice broke the silence. "You fight for me?" she whispered. "No one of my people fight for me. They give me away. I only girl, nothing more." Her voice cracked at the last words, and she lowered her head, ashamed. He frowned, his breathing heavy. "Give you away?" he asked slowly. She nodded, not meeting his eyes. "My family choose lord for me," she whispered. "Old, cruel. They not care if I happy. I only trade." Her glowing eyes flicked up at him for a moment, then dropped again. "But you run with me. You save me. Why?" The question cut deep. He did not know how to explain to her that for humans, even strangers deserved a chance to live. He simply answered, "Because I could not leave you." Her lips parted slightly, and her chest rose with a sharp breath. She studied him as if he were something impossible. Human, she whispered, her voice trembling. You different from them. You strange, but I feel safe. Before he could speak, the sound of stones shifting echoed through the chamber. The girl gasped and rushed to him, pressing close as shadows moved in the far corridor. The hunters were coming again, their lights glowing faintly as they entered the ruins. The human grabbed her hand and pulled her toward a narrow passage at the side of the chamber. She stumbled after him, her breath quick and shallow. The passage was tight, the walls closing in until they were forced to press against each other. The girl's body trembled against his, and she whispered, "So close. I hear your heart." Her fingers tightened on his arm, her glowing eyes inches from his face in the darkness. Her breath brushed his skin, warm and shaky. The hunters' voices grew louder. One shouted, and the sound echoed through the ruins, bouncing like a warning. The girl buried her face against his chest, her lips trembling as she whispered, "If they find us, they kill me slow. They say I touched human. They burn me alive." Her words made him grit his teeth, anger rising inside him. "Then they won't find you," he said firmly, his voice low but certain. He shifted to shield her body with his own, pressing her deeper into the shadows. His strength steadied her, shaking, and for the first time she closed her eyes, trusting him completely. The hunters passed through the chamber, their lights sweeping dangerously close. The human held his breath, his arm around her shoulders, feeling her small frame pressed against him. Her hand slid slowly across his chest, resting over his heartbeat as if to remind herself he was real. She whispered so quietly he barely heard, "Your heart's strong, stronger than theirs." When the voices faded, she finally looked up again. Her glowing eyes shimmered in the dim light, filled with emotions she could not hide. She touched her chest with her trembling hand. "I never feel this before, not with my people, only with you." The human met her gaze, seeing the fear, the wonder, and something softer hidden behind it. He wanted to tell her she deserved better than being treated as property, but the words stuck in his throat. The ruins around them groaned again, a reminder that danger was never far. They pushed deeper into the passage, reaching another chamber where the ceiling had collapsed, opening a small view of the night sky. The stars shone through, cold and distant. The girl looked up at them, her lips parting in awe. "So free," she whispered. "Stars not belong to anyone, but I belong. They take me, they use me." She lowered her head, her silver hair falling like a curtain around her face. The human stepped closer, his voice firm. "No one owns you," he said. She looked at him, shocked by the certainty in his tone. "You belong to yourself." Her eyes filled with tears, glowing faintly as they welled. She shook her head as if fighting the truth of his words, but her body leaned toward him. For a moment, her hand lifted again, reaching toward him but stopping short, trembling in the air. "If I believe you, everything change. I cannot go back." He held her gaze steadily. "Then don't go back," he said. Her lips parted, her breath catching. The hunter's distant voices echoed again, but she didn't move this time. She stayed close, her glowing eyes locked on him, as if the entire world beyond the ruins no longer mattered. The moment stretched, heavy and fragile, until she whispered, "Human, I never afraid like this, but I never want safe like this either." The ruins trembled faintly with the footsteps of their pursuers, but between the broken stones and the stars above, something had shifted. It was no longer just survival. It was the start of a choice neither of them could undo. The chamber was silent except for their breathing. The girl sat close to him, her glowing eyes wide and restless. She looked like she wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but was afraid of every one of them. Finally, her lips moved, and her broken English came out like a whisper. "Why human strong? Why body hard? Why not weak like they say?" Her voice trembled, as if the words themselves were dangerous to speak. The human leaned back against the broken wall, his chest rising and falling slowly. He searched for an answer that she could understand. "Humans, we learn to survive," he said quietly. "We fight storms, hunger, enemies. Our bodies may not look strong, but we are strong because we endure." She tilted her head, her silver hair falling over her shoulder. "Endure," she repeated softly, as if tasting the word. She moved a little closer, her glowing eyes studying him like he was a puzzle. Her hand trembled in her lap before slowly lifting. "When I touch, I feel it. Not weak, not soft. like stone, but alive. His body stiffened. He opened his mouth to stop her, but her hand already brushed against his arm. She gasped again at the warmth of his skin, her fingers pressing lightly as though she feared he might vanish if she let go. "Strange," she whispered. "My kind. Cold. You, warm. Always warm." Her touch lingered, and his heart began to pound harder. He forced himself to stay still, though his instincts told him to pull back. But before he could decide, a noise shattered the fragile moment. From deeper in the ruins came the harsh echo of voices. The hunters were back, and they were closer than before. The girl froze, her hand dropping instantly. Fear flashed in her glowing eyes, and she whispered in panic, "They search again. They know I hide. If they catch, we die." The human's jaw tightened. He stood quickly, ignoring the ache in his injured leg. He grabbed her hand firmly, his voice low but steady. "Then we don't let them find us." They hurried through another broken corridor, their footsteps muffled by dust and moss. The girl stumbled once, but he caught her, steadying her against his chest. She looked up at him, her breath quick, her lips trembling. "You save me again," she whispered. He shook his head. "I just don't want you to die." They slipped into a narrow passage and crouched low. The hunters' footsteps echoed closer, their voices sharp, weapons clattering against stone. The girl pressed herself against him, hiding in his shadow. Her body trembled as she whispered into his chest, "They say human not worth life, but you give me yours. Why?" The human looked down at her, his face unreadable. "Because you deserve better than what they give you," he said. His voice was firm, but his words carried a weight that made her eyes widen. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Her lips parted as if to respond, but then the hunter's light swept past the corridor. The glow came so close it lit her silver hair and the outline of his face. They both held their breath, frozen as stone. The light lingered for a moment before moving away. The voices faded slowly, though they both knew it was only a matter of time before the hunters circled back again. The girl's hand gripped his arm tightly, her nails digging slightly into his skin. She whispered in a voice filled with fear but also wonder, "Your strength, not only body, your words, strong too. I feel it here." She touched her chest with her trembling hand. "No male of my kind ever make me feel safe. Only you." He stared at her, his chest heavy with the weight of her confession. For the first time, he saw how lonely she truly was, how trapped she had been even before meeting him. She lowered her head, her voice breaking. "I am nothing to them, just trade, just gift for Lord. But you." Her glowing eyes lifted his again, wet with unshed tears. "You see me." He wanted to speak, but the words caught in his throat. Her pain was raw, and it pulled at him in ways he couldn't explain. He finally said softly, "You are not nothing. Don't believe that." Her lips trembled into a faint smile, but then her expression shifted as another sound rolled through the ruins, the hunters shouting in anger, closer than ever. She gasped, gripping his chest. "They angry. They know I break law. They know I touch." The human clenched his fists. "Then we run," he said. He helped her up, and together they slipped out of the passage into a wide-open hall. The ruins here were dangerous, with holes in the floor and broken stone hanging like teeth above them. But they had no choice. As they ran, the girl's voice shook with emotion. "I not afraid when I with you," she whispered. "Even when danger near, I feel safe. I not understand." Her words echoed in his mind as they dashed across the chamber, the hunter's lights growing brighter behind them. The human pulled her toward another collapsed archway, breathing hard, his injured leg burning with pain. She noticed, her glowing eyes widening. "You hurt," she whispered. He shook his head. "Doesn't matter." But it did matter to her. She stopped suddenly, pulling his arm so he had to face her. Her glowing eyes searched his face, filled with desperation. "Why? Why you do this for me? I am nothing to you. Why?" He looked at her, his breath heavy, his face shadowed by the faint glow of the crystals. "Because you're not nothing," he said simply. "Because I couldn't walk away." Her lips parted, and her breath hitched. For a moment, she forgot the hunters, forgot the danger. Her trembling hand rose again, brushing against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. She whispered, her voice soft and full of awe. "Strong. Here. Stronger than all." The hunter's shouts grew louder, snapping them back to reality. The girl gasped and pressed against him again, her fear raw. But this time, she did not only tremble, she held onto him firmly, her body clinging to his as though she had made her choice. Together, they ran once more into the dark corridors, deeper into the ruins where even the hunters might fear to go. The danger was closing in, but the bond between them was no longer just fear and curiosity. It was trust, fragile yet powerful, and it pulled them forward into the unknown. The ruins grew colder as they moved deeper inside. The air smelled of dust and old stone, and every sound echoed as if the walls themselves were listening. The human led the way, his hand never letting go of hers. His injured leg dragged slightly, but he kept moving, forcing his body to push past the pain. The alien girl followed close, her glowing eyes fixed on him, fear and something else flickering within them. When they finally stopped in a small chamber, hidden by broken slabs of stone, she sank to the ground, breathing hard. Her chest rose and fell quickly, her silver hair sticking to her face. She looked at him as if seeing him for the first time, her lips trembling. "Why you always protect me?" she whispered in her broken English. "Even when danger close. Even when you hurt." The human leaned against the wall, his chest heavy with exhaustion. He looked at her quietly before answering, "Because it's the right thing to do." She tilted her head, confused. "Right thing?" she repeated softly. The words sounded foreign on her tongue. "My people never say this. They say strong survive, weak die. That is all." His eyes darkened. "That's not all. There's more. You fight for others. You don't leave them behind. That's what makes us human." Her glowing eyes widened as if the truth of his words struck something deep inside her. She touched her chest with her trembling hand and whispered, "That is why. I feel safe." Silence hung between them. She looked down, her fingers curling tightly in her lap. Then, almost without thinking, she whispered again, her voice breaking. "They choose Lord for me. Old, cruel. He not protect. He take. He own. I was gift. Nothing more." Her voice cracked, and her eyes shone with unshed tears. She looked at him with a mixture of shame and desperation. "But with you, different. You fight for me. You see me." Her lips trembled, and she leaned closer without realizing it. "Why?" The human met her glowing eyes, his face steady even though his heart pounded. "Because no one owns you. Not them. Not me. You belong to yourself." Her breath hitched as if his words had broken something inside her. She pressed her hand to her mouth, shaking her head. "If I believe you, I can never go back." "Then don't," he said softly. She looked at him with wide eyes, as if hearing the impossible. For a moment she was silent, her heart racing too fast, her hands trembling uncontrollably. Then she whispered, "I don't want go back. I don't want belong to them. I want belong here." Her hand moved without thought, pressing lightly against his chest, right over his heart. "Here, with you." The human felt her touch like fire through his body. He wanted to speak, but the words stayed trapped in his throat. Her eyes searched his, glowing brighter as if she was waiting for rejection, waiting for him to push her away. But he didn't. He stayed still, letting her feel the steady rhythm of his heart. Tears slipped down her cheeks silently, shimmering faintly in the dim glow of the crystals. "I am afraid," she confessed. "Afraid of them. Afraid of what I feel. But when I stand with you, I am not afraid. Not of death. Not of pain. Only afraid to lose this." The human's chest tightened. He reached out slowly, his hand brushing her shoulder, steadying her shaking body. "You won't lose it," he said. His voice was firm, even though deep inside he wasn't sure how long they could survive. Her eyes widened, and a fragile smile touched her trembling lips. She leaned into his hand like a child desperate for comfort, her body shaking less now. "No male of my kind ever speak like this," she whispered. "No one ever fight for me. Only human." The hunters' voices suddenly echoed again, closer than before. The girl gasped, clutching his shirt tightly. Her whole body stiffened with fear. "They close," she whispered, panic clear in her voice. He looked around quickly, spotting another narrow corridor half hidden by debris. "We move," he said, pulling her up. She followed without question this time, holding on to him as though he was her last chance at life. The corridor was tighter, forcing them to move side by side, their bodies brushing against each other with every step. The girl's breath came fast, not only from fear but from something deeper she couldn't explain. Her hand found his again, gripping it tightly. She whispered, "If they take me, I never see you again. I rather die." The human glanced at her, his jaw tightening. "They won't take you," he said. They reached another chamber, where the ceiling had cracked open, letting in pale moonlight. The girl stopped, her glowing eyes lifting toward the light. She looked fragile under the moon's glow, her silver hair shining like liquid metal. Her lips parted as she whispered, "Moon free, stars free, why not me?" He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "You are free," he said. "You just have to choose it." She turned her glowing eyes to him, tears still glistening. "Then I choose," she whispered, her voice shaking but sure. She pressed her forehead against his chest, her body leaning fully into him now. "I choose human. I choose you." The hunters' angry shouts echoed again through the ruins, but for a brief moment, neither of them moved. In that fragile space between danger and choice, the alien girl had spoken words that changed everything. She was no longer just a curious stranger. She was someone who had broken her people's laws, someone who had risked death, someone who had given her trust to a human. And as she clung to him, trembling but determined, the human knew their fate was bound together now, no matter what hunted them in the dark. The ruins shook with the sound of heavy boots and harsh voices. The hunters were close now, too close. Their lights flickered against the cracked walls, sweeping through the dark like knives. The human's body tensed, his grip on the alien girl tightening. Her glowing eyes looked at him, wide with fear, but there was something new too. Trust. She whispered, her lips trembling, "They come. They kill us both." The human's jaw clenched. He had run long enough. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, the truth that there would be no escape unless he made a stand. He pulled her gently behind him, pressing her against the wall. "Stay here," he said firmly. She shook her head quickly, clutching his arm. "No, you cannot fight them all. You die." His eyes locked on hers. "Then I die standing, not crawling." Her lips parted, and for a moment her glowing eyes softened, filled with something like awe. She wanted to stop him, to beg him to run, but her voice broke before she could speak. He stepped forward into the dim light as the hunters poured into the chamber. There were 4 of them, tall and cruel, their armor glinting with strange symbols. One raised his weapon and spat words in their harsh language. Another sneered when his gaze found the girl hiding behind the human. "Traitor!" the hunter hissed in his tongue, pointing his weapon at her. The human's eyes narrowed, his muscles tightening. He had no weapon, only his body, but his heart beat with iron determination. When the first hunter lunged forward, he moved. His fist struck with all the strength left in him, and the alien staggered back with a roar. The others shouted in fury, rushing him at once. The girl gasped, her hands covering her mouth as she watched the human fight. He was smaller than them, weaker by their measure, but he moved with speed and desperation. He ducked a blade, slammed his shoulder into one guard's chest, and kicked another into the broken wall. Pain shot through his injured leg, but he pushed harder, refusing to fall. One hunter slashed across his arm, and blood splattered against the stones. The girl cried out, her voice breaking, "No!" Her body shook as she pressed herself against the wall, her heart tearing apart at the sight. But the human only gritted his teeth, his eyes blazing with a fire they had never seen before. He caught a fallen piece of stone and swung it like a weapon, striking one hunter across the head. The alien crumpled, his weapon clattering to the ground. Another charged, but the human twisted aside, grabbing the alien's own arm and wrenching it until bone snapped with a sickening crack. The girl could not look away. Her people had always said humans were weak, pathetic. But here was one human, fighting against impossible odds, bloodied but unbroken. She pressed her trembling hand to her chest, whispering through tears, "Strong, stronger than all." The last hunter raised his weapon and aimed at the human's chest. Time seemed to stop. The human's eyes met the girl's across the chamber, and for a moment he thought it was the end. But before the weapon fired, the girl screamed, a raw sound filled with fear and defiance. She rushed forward, throwing herself in front of him. The hunter froze in shock. In their law, she was meant to be obedient, silent. But she stood tall, her arms spread wide, shielding the human with her own body. Her glowing eyes blazed with fire as she shouted in her language, her words fierce and trembling. The hunter's face twisted in disbelief. He barked something back, a cruel threat, but the girl did not move. Her voice shook but did not break. "I choose him," she screamed in her tongue. "I choose the human." The chamber went still. Even the hunters hesitated, stunned by her defiance. And in that moment, the human surged forward, slamming into the last guard with every ounce of strength he had left. The weapon clattered away, and his fist connected with the alien's jaw, sending him crashing to the floor. Silence followed, heavy and absolute. The human stood, blood dripping from his arm, his chest heaving. His eyes turned to the girl. She stared at him with tears streaming down her face, her lips trembling. Slowly, she stepped closer, her hand reaching up to touch his cheek gently. Her fingers shook as they brushed against his blood-stained skin. "You fight, for me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "No one ever, only you." His chest rose and fell heavily, but his gaze softened at her words. She pressed her forehead against his chest, clutching him tightly as if she would never let go. Her body trembled, but her voice was sure when she whispered again, "I not belong to them. I belong here, with you." The human wrapped his arm around her, steadying her shaking body. For the first time since the nightmare began, he allowed himself to breathe. The hunters lay broken around them, their threat ended for now. The ruins were silent again, but the silence no longer felt empty. The girl tilted her head up, her glowing eyes filled with tears and wonder. Her lips quivered as she whispered the words that had been building since the first moment she touched him. "Now I understand. Human not weak. Human stronger than all. Strong here." She pressed her hand against his chest, right over his heart. Stronger than anything. He looked down at her, seeing the truth of it in her eyes. She had risked everything for him, her life, her place, her people, and in return, he had fought for her with everything he had. The ruins around them stood silent, a witness to a choice that could never be undone. The girl clung to him, her body pressed against his, her heart beating fast. She whispered one last time, soft but unshakable, "I am not afraid. Not with you, never with you." And in that moment, both of them knew their lives were bound forever, not by law or blood, but by the dangerous, forbidden truth they had discovered together.